as I only have 16 audience members signed up, but I only see 4 here right now. So hopefully they'll be straggling in, but we have a fair number of folks online as well, which is great. So we'll get started and we'll move through this evening in a very happy way because we're excited to begin the process of reopening our schools more fully. So good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Casari. I'm the superintendent here at Lewiston-Porter Central Schools, and I'd like to welcome our audience members as well as those online to our community meeting, our return to full 5 days of instruction, our school reopening. This would be our community forum. We were required by the new state guidance to offer a community meeting to discuss the reopening, the further reopening. We have been open. I think sometimes people forget that, but the further reopening to have students more frequently on campus. And we're very excited to have this meeting tonight because it means that we continue to move forward and make progress with regard to how we are doing school amidst this global pandemic. So we're excited to be here. We are going to we'll have a little question and answer period once all of the speakers have had a chance to speak, to offer information about reopening starting next Monday. We'll kind of go back and forth in terms of we'll do an audience member and then we'll do online. If we have more online, we'll certainly I'll bring them up on the smart board, the touchscreen, and we can go from there. Let me introduce our audience members. It's always great that we're here and that we present a united front from our governance team, our Board of Education, to our school administrators. We're very excited to have them all with us tonight, again, to continue to show that we are all in this together. And this has been a team effort going back to last March 15th when we closed. Our school board is in constant communication with regard to where we are at with reopening, where we are at with COVID positives that continue to manifest themselves here on campus on a daily basis. And so we have not had opportunity to make sure that they are fully informed. Please remember that the school board are your elected officials. They represent the school community. They represent the parents in terms of how the district operates. And that is super important to remember. So let me introduce our school board members first. So we have our board president, Mrs. Jody Reardon, board member Charlotte Huchman, board member Jim Fournier, board member Jennifer Clement, and board vice president Danielle Mullen. Oh my goodness gracious! I just had a complete mind freeze. Danielle, I'm so sorry. Danielle Mullen, board vice president. Let me introduce the folks up here on our panel that are going to be speaking to you tonight. Assistant Principal Alan Ingram at the middle school principal Andy Auer, high school principal Brad Rolls, our assistant superintendent Dr. Patricia Repka for administrative services, intermediate school principal Tina Rodriguez, primary school principal Mrs. Tamara Larson, Dr. Heather Lyon, she's the assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction. Mr. Nick Hill is our director of technology. I'd like to represent our union membership is here. Mr. Brett Coppins and Mrs. Jill Jaruzelski representing the teachers union. So again, a united front. And Danielle, I don't know how that's even possible. I just had a complete mind freeze. Unbelievable.
He works for you, Danielle.
Yes. Yes. So sorry. Danielle Mullen. Just click. Are you sharing or am I sharing? Because there we go. Oh, wait a minute. Seems to be a little bit of a lag here. Just a quick general overview. So our school reopening plan has been a kind of a community effort from the get-go. And I have tried to keep the parent community, our families informed throughout this process. I established the weekly COVID message that hopefully has allowed families to kind of understand where we are at and the process that has taken place over the course of these 13, 14 months. But we have really since last spring, when we went into this through the summer, we had our summer meetings. We have continually tried to keep the community informed. And then throughout this school year, we have kept very strong lines of communication open between our parents, community members, teachers, support staff. I have weekly engaged with other Orleans Niagara superintendents through my Orleans Niagara superintendents group. We have a weekly meeting. I just had our weekly meeting today with the Niagara County Health Commissioner, Mr. Dan Stapleton. We've been working closely, as you can see, with all of our union leadership and obviously our United administrative team. And then hopefully through the surveying that parents have been able to offer their feedback in terms of the process and the progress that we have made through both our hybrid and our fully remote students. There are a couple of key points that I think the community needs to understand as we move into this. So obviously we knew that in early March, the CDC presented new guidance for schools to more fully reopen. Within the context of that guidance, the largest change was the CDC moving the social distancing in classrooms. It's important to note, in classrooms from 6 feet to 3 feet. And again, that's when we say that social distancing, that's the face to the face. So the desks themselves may be a little closer than 3 feet, but the mouth to the mouth in terms of the center of the desk is now moved from 6 feet to 3 feet of the students in the classroom. Beyond that, there were a number of caveats and qualifiers to that change that the CDC. We all were breathlessly waiting for the New York State Department of Health and the New York State Department of Education to weigh in on that new CDC guidance. And that took quite a while. I certainly had anticipated that we would have heard prior to spring break. We had started to think about reopening really in early March after that CDC guidance had established these new guidelines. But the New York State Department of Health, obviously in conjunction with the governor's office and the New York State Department of Education, ultimately didn't weigh in until the middle of spring break. But I can say that we had been preparing to make that switch. So during spring break, we had been repopulating our classrooms with desks, and we had been, repositioning desks in various areas of our school buildings to anticipate more students in the cafeteria, and there would be obviously more students available in music classes and things like that. So we had to make all of those adjustments, and all of that was happening during spring break. And so we were, I felt, prepared to make that switch, make that jump once that guidance was established. And we received that guidance, and then it was really a matter of taking that pause to see where we are currently at in terms of any sort of spike in cases from spring break. And also to make sure that our new bus routing schedules were put out to all the families to make sure that everybody was on the same page in terms of the new bus routes and those kinds of things. So we're there now. We're ready to roll with those new protocols in place. But let me just again remind our community specifically what those key points were that are now had been more or less established by the New York State Department of Health. First of all, barriers are no longer required. In our classrooms, you're going to hear that in some instances in the elementary school, We took off some of those barriers. So if students are facing frontwards in some classrooms, all of those barriers were removed. When students are facing each other, there are a couple of teachers that like to have that sort of configuration. We kept the barriers there for students that are facing each other, kind of talking toward each other. But when those students are facing forward, we've removed those barriers. Face masks are still required at all times, except for meals, obviously, in the cafeterias, breakfast, lunch, in the cafeteria setting. Face masks are required at all times and social distancing to the extent possible, and that's important. Or I think the actual terminology that the state uses in the document is whenever possible for transportation. In most instances, will have 2 students to a seat on a bus. There are some instances where there will only be 1, but in general, there will be 2 students to a seat on our buses. The average bus size has about 40, went from about 15 to 20 to upwards of 22 students on a bus to about 35 to 40 students on a bus now. So in some instances, there may be still a single seat, but in general, our buses will have 2 students to a bus, but obviously the students will be required to wear masks at all times. Back forward there, Mr. Hill. It must have. There we go. There we go. Go. Okay, so there's some qualifiers here. So 3 feet of social distancing is required between students, but there are some qualifiers to that. And that has to do with transmission rate in our counties, here in Niagara County, for instance. And I'll go into some detail in terms of that particular transmission rate number. But in counties with low, moderate risk of transmission, elementary, middle, and high school students can maintain physical distancing of 3 feet. In counties with substantial risk of transmission, elementary, middle, and high school students can maintain physical distancing 3 feet between in classrooms. And cohorting is recommended. And then finally, in counties with high risk of transmission, elementary can maintain physical distancing of 3 feet. And you can either cohort at the middle and high school level, or you would then required to have 6 feet of social distancing. As I stated in my last message, cohorting is virtually impossible for us to do the way our school schedule is set up. Cohorting really requires students to stay in the same group of students and travel from in the same group, much like in an elementary classroom. And the way our students' schedules are set and going to different classes and taking different courses and those kinds of things, it would be virtually impossible. If we had time, obviously, in the summer to do that, but again, almost impossible at the high school, given the various numbers of classes that students wish to take and those kinds of things. So we are not going to do that. We are not able to, at this point, do any sort of cohorting at the middle or high school. So students will need to remain in the hybrid at the middle and high school levels until such time as the transmission rate declines. And I'll kind of go into that a little bit in just a second. Okay, so 6 feet of social distancing must still be maintained between all adults in the school. 6 feet of social distancing must still be maintained in common areas where possible, gymnasiums, auditoriums, cafeterias, hallways. 6 feet of social distancing must still be maintained when students cannot wear masks, such as when eating in the cafeteria. And 6 feet of social distancing is now required for physical education in music classes where there is singing and in music classes where there is wind and brass instruments. And again, that used to be 12 feet and that's now reduced to 6 feet. So that's obviously a positive change as well. I did want to touch base, and I don't know if I can click on this.
Yep.
Very good.
Sorry, I think the Wi-Fi is just a little spotty and that's
It
why it's
must be.
laggy.
Right?
There you go.
So I can touch this, right?
Yep.
So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the transmission rate. And so as you can see, here is the CDC website. And if I select state, and if I select the state, New York, and I select our county. Yeah. Okay, as you can see, based on that, the level of transmission is, and I believe this is through April 16th, yeah, time period April 10th through April 16th, so that was last Friday, in Niagara County is still considered high. And what that specifically means is currently right now, here further, here's our moving averages. You'll notice that we have 326.83 cases per 100,000 families. Just in our meeting today with the superintendents of Orleans and Niagara County, we were on a call with Commissioner Dan Stapleton here in Niagara County and Commissioner Paul Pettit in Orleans County. That number needs to be at 100 per 100,000 cases in order for us to be able to reopen. Now, and beyond that, obviously we ask, well, what happens if it does finally get to 100 and then it goes to 101, we have to immediately shut down? The health departments at this point really didn't have an answer for us. So they're working with that scenario with the Niagara County or with the New York State Department of Health. But currently, as you can see, there are 684 cases in Niagara County. Rolling average, 684. We have about 260,000 people living in Niagara County. So that gets us to the 326 per 100,000 rate. So that transmission rate, in order for our middle and high school students, must be down to 100 per 100,000, according to our commissioners of health for both Niagara County and Orleans County. And of course, you've all been reading and perhaps hearing in the newspaper about the ongoing communication in Erie County as well, and that number remains similar for Erie County. So currently right now, this is where we are at. And this is, if you're interested, I had it out in my last community message, but you are actually welcome to click on this at all time and kind of see where we stand in terms of that transmission rate. So, given all of that, we are able to bring our pre-K through 5 students back to Lewiston-Porter for a full 5 days of instruction using this new guidance and these new protocols. There's a little bit of devil in the detail, and obviously that's important for families to understand and know. And that's why I have this very dedicated group here. So first up, I'd like to have Dr. Patricia Gupta come up and talk a little bit about our facilities and how we're going to be handling our facilities at the elementary level with the larger group of students back. And she's also going to talk a little bit about transportation. At this point, all families should have received their new numbers. Their new bus numbers and bus routes and bus times and all of those kinds of things. If you have not, again, in my last community message, I had some contact information and we encourage folks to do. I did want to also introduce Mr. John Everett in the back, assistant principal at the high school. He was kind of helping with the group there, and I kind of missed him. So Mr. Everett, thank you for being here as well. All right, Dr. Gupta, all you.
Thank you.
And I'm going to move you here, and it is a little slow, but just push the arrow.
Got it. Thank you. Well, thank you everyone who has attended today. I'm so glad that you're here, and there's nothing more important than your children's safety. So I'm glad that you were able to attend. We've come a long way, and I'm excited to have the elementaries back. In terms of PPE, the expectations are going to be The same, with exception of there will no longer be lunch or snack breaks in any of the classrooms. If anyone wants a mask break, it is going to happen outdoors or in the cafeteria or eating areas. We can't have mask breaks at 3 feet apart. So the masks are going to be really critical and very important. We still have hand sanitizers in every classroom. We have them in all common areas. You'll see them throughout the halls. They are posted at the entrances of the cafeterias. We will expect children and we'll direct them to hand sanitize as they're getting off the buses, as they're going into the cafeterias, as they're leaving the cafeterias. Wherever there's not water available to wash their hands, we will ask them to sanitize. Of course, many of our classrooms do have sinks in the rooms. They'll be able to wash their hands in the room throughout the day as well. The social distancing, while we can be 3 feet in a classroom space at the elementaries, that is limited to the classroom space. Children will still need to be socially distanced in the hallways to the extent possible and in line. So when they're waiting for lunch and those kind of areas. We had sent at the beginning of the year a notice out, and we've been sending it out periodically for families to take their children's temperatures before they leave the house. And then there's a small short health questionnaire, and it's one that was designed by the CDC. We're going to continue pushing that out. That is a very important piece of what you do, is assessing your child's health before they leave the house. We're going to ask that you continue to do that as often, as frequently as you can. If your child has a symptom, please do not send them to school. Right now, I met with our nurses the other day. There's several new forms of variants out that we seem to be hearing about. So I can't express enough the importance of, if your child is sick, please keep them home. I talked a little bit about the hand and respiratory hygiene. Again, the coughing you should be coughing in your sleeve. If you've got a mask on, if you have a tissue, those should be thrown away right away. The flow chart is on our website. I'm not going to go over that because it's the CDC. It's based off the CDC guidelines as well. If you go to the front page of our website, you can click on our flow chart and it'll show you what to do if you have symptoms, who to contact, how long it takes before you can come back to school. Typically, if somebody does test positive, right now at 6 feet, if we have a positive in one of our classrooms, we are not quarantining the classroom. I'm told at 3 feet that may change. That is the other reason it's going to be very, very difficult to have the secondaries back. Right now, we have not had many incidents of positive cases at the elementaries. That's great news. If we do have one, we may have to quarantine a whole class again. And I just want everyone to be prepared for that as well, that this is fantastic that they're back. But we need to do everything possible proactively to keep ourselves back. Cleaning and sanitation, our facilities crew, hands off to our facilities crew for doing such a great job, and really hats off to our entire staff. Our teachers have pitched in, our teacher aides, our clerical staff. There isn't anybody who hasn't joined in the process, but our cleaners and our custodians have had formal training in how to sanitize appropriately. We've purchased new cleaners. We brought a company in, they've given us flow sheets. So on every cart, there's a list of what needs to be done multiple times a day, what gets done daily, what gets done periodically. And then of course we have, if you've seen them in here, and there's probably one as you walk out, we actually have a check-off sheet so that every time somebody comes in and does a room, they initial off so that you know that that room has been sanitized. Traffic flow, we're still having one directional. We have all the arrows out when you walked in. We have our hash lines for when you pick up lunches. Those are 6 feet apart. We are still going to try to make sure that our traffic flow is one direction only and that we have as little contact in the hallway as possible. We've restructured our lunches seem to be our biggest issue. So we've had to restructure our lunch spaces. Our lunch spaces are staying at 6 feet. We've purchased several hundred desks so that we have enough where we can have every child in a desk for lunch. So we will not have any of the tables back in the lunchroom yet. This allows us to really measure the spaces, and it allows us to wipe them off. And we'll, we have all of our custodial staff, not all, Most of our custodial staff is we've transferred onto days, so that we have all hands on deck. Our lunch monitors are assisting and wiping off the desks in the cafeterias. We've had to modify how we deliver athletics and PE. We're doing the best that we can to really utilize the spaces that we have. Our PTA provided us tents. Those are back up and operational and ready for occupancy. So if people wanted to take breaks, they could go outside and use the tents. And we have purchased water bottle fillers throughout the building so that students don't have to drink out of water fountains. We've actually shut all of our water fountains down. I talked a little bit about breakfast and lunch service. For students who are remote, we still do have a pickup at the high school here, the same as before. But for our children in school, we'll still be doing breakfast and lunch. And as I said, we'll get in line, we'll get their breakfast and lunch. They need to keep their mask on until they're seated. Once they're seated and ready to eat, they can take the mask off to eat. As soon as they're done eating, the mask should go back on. On transportation, and this has been really, this has been a heavy lift because with all of our children coming back, we were really hoping to keep a little bit more socially distanced on the buses. Right now, you'll notice if you got your bus sheet, we've had to change some runs so that we really don't have more than 40 students per bus. A bus holds more than 40 students, but what we wanted to do was make it so that at maximum, there would be 2 students per seat, assuming every student that we had listed as a driver, as a bus rider, would ride every day. We know that that doesn't happen. We know that there's a lot of people who are on sometimes, some people who just want that spot held. So if I'm saying there's 40 students on a bus, the chances are very slim that there are 40 students on a bus. That being said, we do have to hold those seats for them. Children of the same family, we would ask that they sit together, and they will be directed they'll be given that direction as they load onto the bus. Everyone must wear a mask on the bus for the entire ride, from the time you get on to the time you get off. At the elementaries, we have some of our staff and some of our helpers who will hand sanitize as they're getting off the bus. Originally, the guidance came out and said that children couldn't have hand sanitizer on bus. They have changed that. So if you wanted to send your child on the bus with hand sanitizer, they could bring it on with them as well. Our BOCES runs are running as normal, so we will expect that to stay the same. Do you want me to cover elementary?
No, we're gonna head over to, I think you're all set there, Dr.
Okay,
Pepper.
thank you.
Thank you for that information. So I'm gonna skip down to what happens if there is a quarantine, because I had Dr. Lyon just put that schedule. So if there is, and I did in my conversation with Commissioner Stapleton today, they're gonna be very judicious with regard to full class quarantine. Their goal is that will not happen. To say that it will never happen is, as he mentioned, might be difficult, but they're going to try in every instance to try to just isolate that child and perhaps those children that are just around that child. But we'll have to see how that plays out once the students get back into school. As Dr. Grubka mentioned, the majority of the cases that we are seeing right now are at the middle and high school levels. We occasionally get students at the elementary levels. You're receiving those letters that come home. You might get that ping on your smartphone. But in general, we haven't seen the kind of spread that we're seeing at the middle and high school, at least currently right now. We hope that remains the case. But in the event that there is a situation, now it's working much better, and we have to class quarantine, there will be, if it was the entire class, now the teachers do not have to quarantine if they're fully vaccinated. And the majority of our teachers are now fully vaccinated, which is great. So the teacher will be on campus teaching the students remotely through the smartboard and through their Chromebook or their device. And the schedule will not be the current Monday schedule. It will be a more fuller, extended schedule, class schedule. And I'm going to have Dr. Heather Lyon just kind of briefly go over what that schedule would look like in the instance that a child needed to be quarantined. In the instance that it's a singular child or just 2 or 3 students, then they're going to just zoom into the class with their other students, the other kids that are in the class. But in the instance that we have to quarantine an entire class, this would be the new remote schedule. Dr. Lyon?
So, hello, everyone. For those of you who looked at our fully remote plan, this will look familiar because it's taken directly from there. And so it is a schedule that allows for students to have more instructional time because it would be a multi-day experience. What you need to know is that the only difference between what you're seeing on this slide and what you would see in the fully remote plan is that if we were fully remote with 100% of our teachers and students who are virtual, that means all teachers would be available. In this instance, we're talking about an isolated classroom, and therefore our special area teachers are not going to be available. Therefore, in the fully remote plan, you'll see that there would be 1 day a week where the students would have their specials. In the instance where we have a quarantined classroom, they would have instruction 5 days a week. And that's really it. It's very straightforward. In the event that you would have to, your child would be in a fully remote setting because of a quarantine, the classroom teacher would be in touch with the families to let them know specifically what the afternoon looks like, because in the afternoon there are going to be conferences and that would be a scheduled opportunity. So just stay tuned, and hopefully you'll never need to look at page 5 in the fully remote guidance.
Thank you, Dr. Lyon. I'm now going to let the principals talk a little bit about some of the more specific elementary procedures as related to the buildings, particularly pick up and drop off. And are you guys coming up together? All right, very good. So here's Mrs. Rodriguez and Mrs. Larson.
Good evening, everyone. And I just want to start by saying thank you to all of our parents out there in the personal audience tonight, but also out there virtually. And this is not just for me as your child's principal. Our teachers and our entire staff have told me every week they could not have done this without the support of their parents this year. We always say we're a partnership between home, school, and community. Well, it has never shown up like it has this year. So thank you to all of you who have really supported your children through this just unprecedented year and this hybrid schedule. Having said that, we are thrilled to bring your children back 5 days a week. Yes, we have to do so very safely, very carefully, and really adhere to all of those guidelines that Dr. Gupta really reviewed today, and Mr. Kasiri. But there's just a few things that we know as building principals you've been asking us about throughout the hybrid model that we want to just kind of go over with you, because we did have to tweak some procedures. First being mask breaks. So there it is. Dr. Gupta talked about how mask breaks could only happen when we can maintain 6 feet of social distancing. Well, in the hybrid model, we were able to accomplish that in the classroom. So we were able to have mask breaks as needed at teacher discretion, oftentimes on the hour. In fact, that's what was written into our handbooks. We can't accomplish that in the classroom now that we're 3 feet apart. So not only will snack breaks be outside of the classroom, but also mask breaks have to be done outside of the classroom. So we've identified the times for you. This is the question I get most often from parents is, how many mask breaks is my child going to get? So at lunchtime, of course, when they're in the cafeteria eating, or at snack time and have snacking once a day. Depending on your lunch schedule, that snack time might be in the morning, late morning, or it might be in the afternoon. Outside recess. When 6 feet of social distancing can be accomplished, the teacher may let them take off their masks and have a short break. When they're on the playground, on the equipment, we cannot accomplish 6 feet of social distancing, so they will have to have their masks on when they're on the playground equipment. Physical education when outside. Now, we were hoping to be outside tomorrow. I'm not sure that's going to happen anymore, but for the most part, our plan is for physical education to take place outside where they can maintain 6 feet of social distancing. In those cases, they can get a break. Okay, so that's what I wanted to review with you in regards to mask breaks. Now, Mrs. Rodriguez.
Hello, and thank you for coming today. I appreciate everyone who showed up and online and all of your support over the last 7 months. It really has been a partnership. I know I see what the teachers are doing in the classrooms and on virtual Mondays, alongside with the teacher or the parents supporting at home. So thank you so much. I'm going to touch a little bit on technology. It's been since March of last year, a lot different in the elementaries on how we are using technology. At the PEC, all of our students have iPads, and our 3rd grade class at the IEC have iPads. All of our other students have Chromebooks. And we know how important they have been on daily use. So we're going to continue to ask parents and teachers to bring those iPads and Chromebooks back and forth daily in the event that there is a closure or an emergency. So it will be the child's responsibility to bring it back and forth. We ask that you keep the chargers at home, continue the same routine that you have now where you're charging them at home and they come fully charged so that when they are in school, they are ready to use. If you have any questions with that, or your classroom teacher, your child's classroom teacher gives a different direction, that would be approved by the principals. Please follow what the teachers are asking you to do. But at this point, we are going to move forward with having the children bring them back and forth daily. And then we have one last topic that we'd like to discuss, which is drop off and pick up. But it is a pretty important change to having all of our students back on campus. So Mrs. Larson is going to talk about the PEC first.
So at the PEC in the morning, I actually have a higher volume of traffic and drop-offs. So we have decided to recommend to all of our parents, we're asking you for help with this. We so appreciate that you're driving your kids in because it helps us with the social distancing on the buses. So again, thank you. However, right now it's taking the PEC a good 20 minutes to get all student drop-offs safely in the building. So we know that it's going to take maybe almost twice as long when we have all of our children back next week. Hopefully not 40 minutes, but we know there will be increased time. To avoid traffic jams over at the ad building and swinging around onto Creek Road, we are recommending this staggered schedule that you see here. So if you can adhere to this, I think it will also help you if you're dropping off because you won't get stuck in traffic. So we're recommending that our 2nd graders and our multi-agers be dropped off starting at 8:40 in the morning, followed by 1st grade at 8:50. And our kindergartners who tend to take more time, need more help getting out of the vehicle, they would be our final drop-off at approximately 8:55. These are all approximate times. They are not going to be police enforced, but we do think if we work together, this will help alleviate some of the traffic that could happen. But again, thank you for helping us with driving your children in. It really is helping us create safety and space on those buses. Our pickup times at the PEC are going to remain exactly the same. So what they've been all year, we can accommodate that at the end of the day. We already have some space in between and some lag time, so we're just going to fill that lag time. So again, that will stay the same, no changes there. And now for the IEC.
So we're just the opposite of the PEC, and our drop off is going to remain the same. We have a pretty frequent flow that when parents come, kids jump out and they just come in the building. They don't need as much support as those kindergartners. So we're going to keep it. We'll monitor it. Make changes if we feel we need to. Times we'll change back to those original times. If you remember, if you were a pickup parent in the beginning of the school year, these were our original times: 3:05, 3:20, and then 3:35. And we had a lot of downtime in between. And our goal was to keep our students in the classroom as long as possible. So we pushed it back until 3:15 was our first pickup time. But we know that we're going to have more parents picking up at the end of the day. So we are going to go back to our original times with our first group, fifth graders, being at 3:05. And then our fourth graders at 3:20 and our third graders at 3:35. If any special arrangements have been made based on your child's schedule for that 3:35 pickup or what class they have, continue to follow the schedule that you're currently on, just with a different time. For example, if you have a child in third grade and fifth grade, in the beginning of the year, we had asked that you have your third grader come with your fifth grader. Due to the third grade schedule, they had some PE at the end of the day. We made adjustments so that your fifth grade child would go with your third grade child. Please follow that same schedule that works for your family. And the one thing I want to ask is for your patience. The lines will be a little bit longer. We will do our best to keep it moving. And then just look for frequent memos. I know that I've talked to Mr. Auer, and he's going to help me monitor over at the middle school through the parking lot to make sure that there's not any backups or confusion through the middle school parking lot. And if there's a possibility you'll see Mr. Auer, with the orange cones in his hands directing traffic. But so thank you, Mr. Auer, and thank you everybody for your patience as we get through this next week or two, making these small adjustments, for the safety of all of our kids during pickup time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Larson, Mrs. Rodriguez. And so that brings us to the end of our presentation, and it's time for questions. We feel we're ready. We feel we're ready to accept those students that have indicated at grades pre-K through 5 that they are desiring to come back to us full 5 days. We're excited to have them back. We feel we're moving in a positive direction. And now really we want to make sure that the families feel comfortable. So if there are any questions at this point, we can start with the audience. The first,
That one you answered already.
yeah, what defines low, moderate, and high rates of transmission? I did pull up the CDC website. So again, how the CDC comes up with that formula, I think it's based on the number of cases per the population. You can certainly check the CDC website and see the variety of different data that's available by county here in Niagara County, Erie County, and those kinds of things. Are there any questions from our audience? Do you mind, Mr. Robert, do you mind just moving the microphone around for me? Thank you so much.
I have a question as far as the health department. When are they going to come up with a definitive answer as far as quarantining a whole class or just?
I don't think you'll ever get a definitive answer from the health department.
Okay.
I don't think we've ever really had a definitive answer from any of our agencies, state agencies, from the governor right on down. We continue to work with them on a daily basis, on a case-by-case basis. So I think it's going to be on a case-by-case basis, dependent on that positive individual and the situation in the classroom.
Okay.
I wish I had a better answer for you, but I have yet to been able to pin down any of our state agencies on any of this so far. So it's difficult.
Understandable.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else in our audience?
I'll put up, there's a couple more online
Yeah.
questions.
Again, Mr. Hockenberry, we are looking at a countywide data, not district-wide data, which is significantly lower. I go by what the county health department goes by and how they direct us. That is what we are required to do as a public school run by New York State. And so consequently, we use those transmission rates that you can see are very easily accessed on the CDC website. When that changes, if that changes, we'll be glad to do it. They do not break it down by positivity rate here in the town of Lewiston or the town of Porter or in our school district. It is based on the county-wide transmission rates that you can clearly see are listed on the CDC website.
Another one.
We are not comfortable sending our child 5 days since cases are rising. My daughter has allergies, but would still like to go Thursday and Friday. That is your choice. If you keep your child home, unfortunately, we can't teach the children online once we come back full. We did offer families opportunity to go fully remote if they feel uncomfortable with that. We still have those opportunities. That window is still open. However, we will ultimately, if those numbers rise, we would max out in terms of the number of teachers that we have currently teaching in the fully remote, and then students would have to go on a wait list until other students come back to a full 5 days. So if a family is not comfortable sending their child, obviously they're going to have to be in communication with the classroom teacher. That classroom teacher will certainly be working with that child to provide asynchronous work, but we are not able to have the children Zoom into our classrooms each day to watch the teacher teach. That is some other districts are doing, and that requires the teacher to stay stationary in front of their Chromebook and not be able to get out and work with the other students in the class. And that just is not how we have operated the process here at Lewiston-Porter. So that is going to have to be a family decision. If you are not comfortable with that, I ask that you please contact the school to talk about movement towards full remote.
There's another one, but it went down underneath.
Sure, thank you. When students are distanced at 6 feet and are singing, are they required to wear a mask or sing without it? They would be required to wear the mask during those experiences, just like they're required to wear the mask in classrooms when they're 3 feet apart. So they have to sing with the mask on, but they are able to sing. It used to be 12 feet of social distance. Now it's 6 feet. They are required to wear the mask.
You might need to scroll down again. Sorry.
Will windows be open for ventilation in classrooms, cafeterias, and buses? Yes, they will. That is certainly within the context of the guidance. Once the weather gets a little bit, tomorrow might be a difficult day, but as we move into next week, yes, in all instances where we're able to open windows, we will be opening windows, and that has been the case right along, even during the hybrid experience. Is the district planning to cohort middle school students next year? If the rules don't change, we certainly will be looking at all options with regard to student schedules. But it is, as I expressed to you, extremely difficult given the type of opportunities that we are continuing to try to provide our students. But clearly, we would be looking at all options, including cohorting, should we get into next year and we're still required to maintain these significant guidelines. Will that be possible? I cannot at this point say. It's certainly something that we will have to look at very carefully moving forward. That would be awesome.
Here, I'm gonna just move them out as you answer them, so that way you won't have to worry about it. How about this one?
Do you plan to work on a plan for next year for middle schools and high school to return 5 days, 6 feet apart? As I mentioned to you, we'll be looking at all options. We would not be able to, let me try to repeat this carefully. We do not have the staff, we are not able to hire the staff that would be able to bring back all 700 plus students here at the high school and have them 6 feet apart in all of our classes. It is impossible. We do not have the space here to do that. So that would be virtually impossible. Again, as I mentioned, at the middle school, certainly cohorting would be exceptionally difficult, but we would certainly take a look at it, perhaps even at 6th grade. But that would be going back to a much more elementary approach in terms of elementary classrooms for 6th grade. Currently, we departmentalize, or the kids move to various classes. And in some instances, kids are taking upper level classes and those kinds of things. But no, we would not be able to look at having all of the kids here at the high school back if we are still required to maintain 6 feet. What are the procedures required for pre-K to attend class this spring? They're virtually the same. I don't know if ladies, do you want to mention anything about pre-K? Working with the Y, we're 3 feet apart.
They are exactly in alignment with our.
They're,
So
the
they are-
YMCA is exactly in alignment with our plan. They'll be 3 feet apart. They leave at 11:30 each day.
11:25.
11:25.
Unless they're in the wraparound program.
Unless you're in the wraparound program, and they'll have the same instances of snacks and those kinds of things to get their mask breaks and obviously get outside and those kinds of things. But they'll follow the same procedures and protocols that are happening at the PEC. Is the transformation rate referred to among both adults and children? It's what's listed on the CDC website. I really want to express, I'm not an expert on the transmission rates. I encourage you to reach out to the Niagara County Health Department if you want a much more detailed understanding of the transmission rates in our county. What I know is it's the number of cases per our population. So as you saw, with 624 cases in our county and the rolling average through Friday, April 16th, which extrapolates out to about 326 or so per 100,000. I'm told by the Niagara County Health Commissioner and also in conjunction with the Orleans County Health Commissioner that number must be 100 per 100,000 cases in order for us to not be at a high rate of transmission. If we do decide to come back from remote to full-time, can we do that later, or will we stay remote until the end of the school year? We will be, once we have a brief window open right now, because we know that there are still going to be, but that window will close and families will need to make that decision for the remainder of the school year, correct? Or we're gonna,
The window, we discussed the window was left for
Okay.
elementary.
for elementary.
Yes.
So again, working with the buildings, they're able to accommodate that. We'll have the window open if you want to transition back and forth. Obviously, we assume that once the family makes that decision to come back to us, that they're going to remain with us full 5 days. But if you're having some concerns, once you get back and you want to talk with the building principal about a transmission, move back to fully remote, you're able to accommodate that. All right, very good. So in your estimation, what does the next year look like? I really cannot speak about next year. We're trying to finish this year, folks. Once we get into next year, once we get towards the summer here, we're looking, obviously, there'll be new guidance coming out from the New York State Department of Education. And we'll probably be going through the same process again. When we get into August, we'll be able to let families know exactly where we stand in terms of the 2021-2022 school year. But I can't make any sort of decisions and judgments on next school year. We're really trying to finish out this school year.
It was more of a comment than a question, and that's it.
Thank you for the nice comment. Appreciate that. Anything else? Yeah, please go right ahead.
We have kids that are younger and older, and you got to understand what the parents are dealing with, okay? And I'm sure you're hearing it, but that laughter really didn't upset me right now. These kids are having a hard time, the older kids, and I understand the people back, and I know you're gonna try your hardest to get them back, but that was not necessary.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm sorry if you took that as offensive. It was not intended to be at all. It was simply that we were receiving a number of questions.
But that's what the parents are feeling like, and they just want to know, and I know they can't tell us, and I appreciate what you're doing.
Right. And I said in my message that we really wanted to focus on K-5 for this meeting. And once we are able to get open, we certainly will have a meeting to talk about secondary. And we are in no way trying to offend anybody. We want the students back just as much as ever. So I do apologize if anybody took that as inappropriate.
I had two more questions just coming.
Yeah, please go right ahead. Can the kids still take the New York State exam remotely? No, they cannot take the exam remotely. The New York State exams are not required this year. The option is available for families, and we are asking families right now if they want to have their child take either the 3 through 8 assessment or any of the Regents exams, but they are not. They're not required this year. It's simply they're available if a family would like to have their child take it. There are a number of options at the high school level that have been that will be detailed from the high school itself. The options are just too many in terms of what the child would get on their transcript and on their permanent record in terms of taking or not taking. But there is it's not going to impact the student in any way if they decide not to take the test. Again, New York State has offered that option, but there is no remote option for families. So if there is a student in the fully remote currently who wishes to take the test, they would have to make arrangements with the school to come in and take that test. Will you make every effort to make these decisions as early as possible to give families an opportunity to make alternate schooling for the high school children? Yes, we'll certainly, as we get into the summer, try to make those opportunities known to families as soon as we're able to. Again, it will largely be based on the guidance that we receive from the New York State Department of Education. Much like we did last year, we received that guidance on July 15th. We had to have a plan to the State Department of Education by July 30th. And then, of course, we rolled out the plan to the community over the month of August. My guess would be that it would fall into a similar timeline. But again, that will be up to the New York State Department of Education to give us that guidance. Currently, right now, we would be operating under this current guidance until such time as it changes. So that's what we would be looking at. I anticipate new guidance coming as we get into the summer. Obviously, once vaccination opportunities are extended to all children, that's going to be a bit of a game changer as well. And I know that is those tests and those trials are happening right now. I anticipate that being that happening sometime as we get into the end of this school year into the summer. Will vaccinations be required or not required? I can't begin to say. As you all know, in New York State, there are certain vaccinations that are required. Maybe a possibility. We'll have to see where the New York State Department of Health goes with that. But at this time, we're operating under these new protocols and will remain under these new protocols until such time as the guidance changes. Sure.
Why didn't it happen to see that I was supposed to have the information for the ELA test on the 16th, and so I sent it in today. Is it still too late for my son to actually take it, just to see where his level is, being that I feel like he's definitely declined in this, he is in 7th grade, so I
Oh, 7th grade.
understand, yeah, I understand that I didn't.
Yeah, I think there's
I didn't read.
Yeah, why don't you give the main office at the middle school a call tomorrow, and, you know, we'll make sure that your child is set up to take the
Yes,
test.
because I definitely want to see where his level is. I do know that,
Sure.
that he's declined bad, so.
Sure, and we also, you know, there's Ames Web Plus testing going on, diagnostic testing. I would ask that you reach out to the middle school administration, and they can talk to you, because we have really more pinpoint data in terms of where your child might be at. Can teachers take students outside for mask breaks other than just for recess? Those opportunities will remain. I know that we do have our tents up, so there'll be opportunities for teachers maybe to sign out those tents and perhaps teach outside. And as we get into the spring of the year, there'll be all of that opportunity, those opportunities taking place.
We discussed at our faculty meeting yesterday that, you know, as the weather gets nicer, take them for walks. You know, we need to take care of the needs of your kids, and, you know, the little ones, they do need masks. So it might mean that they are taking a quick break outside.
Great, yes, so that will happen on a much more regular basis than just those indicated times. Would you consider a parent group to assist the high school and middle school back to 5 days, 6 feet for next year? It's hard to understand. No, folks, we're the administration here at the district. I'm hired by the Board of Education, who you elect. We will make the plans and roll out the plans to our school community. Certainly, once we have those plans in place, we're not going to put a parent committee together to talk about how we're going to do that or not do that. That is something that we will work on here through our administration. We're the hired educators who understand the facilities, who understand the guidance, who understand our school budget, who have a deep understanding of what we're able to do in terms of our what our teachers are able to do and those kinds of things. So again, there'll be opportunity for feedback and questions once we roll out whatever plan that is, but we're not going to put a parent committee together to plan itself. We will develop the plan based on the new guidance that we have from the New York State Department of Education, and we'll move forward in that direction.
That's it.
Okay, yes.
Will the fifth graders have enough time to go on tours for those schools?
Mr. Aller, Mr. Ingram, what are you guys thinking? You know, we're going to have those opportunities coming up in the spring to do transitioning.
We've been doing individual tours all year. I don't know if we'll do whole group, if that's not necessary, but yeah, if you would like to take your challenge.
I just remember. My older daughter.
Yeah, I don't know if that will happen, but.
Mr. Aller, the question was about fifth grade transitioning to sixth grade, and will there be an opportunity for groups, small groups to come over and just kind of get a feel for what that might be all about? I wouldn't see why that.
Maybe.
Yeah,
But certainly we will do something along the lines of what we did last year minimally, meaning that the students will have an opportunity to see, you know, who the teachers are. There was a presentation that was put out. We're still waiting on guidance as to whether or not we can do small groups through and things like that. And what does that look like for other kids in the building? So we can certainly get more information out. There will be something.
all right, great.
We
So,
also will start and have a web program for the incoming sixth graders to welcome them and to transition them into the middle school.
which
So-
we had last year.
Yeah, we're recruiting the seventh graders.
Great. So yes, the answer is there'll be some programming. Yes. Anything else from our audience? All right, thank you so much. Have a great evening, and we look forward to having your elementary students back with us next week full time.